Welcome to the Extra Time Podcast, where you'll hear sports stories you might not have heard about from people you might not have heard of. Let's get into this week's show.
Hello all, and what a day it is to talk a bit of sport, a bit of Aussies around the grounds. Welcome back to another episode of our special Aussies Around the Ground podcast. It's separate now, so you won't have to hear us trying to yap about footy beforehand. We're just talking Aussies around the grounds, every sport but Australian sport on our soil. And I could not be happier to join you today alongside Lorenzo and Bodie. Boys, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
And before further ado, we always start with this is why we play, boys. And for those that don't know, I'm not sure there'll be many that don't know because you follow sport. But the Paralympics is on at the moment. And I thought this was pretty perfect for this is why we play, because often in these world tournaments and the big tournaments around the world, the only things that really get celebrated are those medal winning efforts, the winners and things like that. But this is why we play is a segment where I'd like to celebrate things that aren't necessarily wins. And Jared Clifford hasn't had that winning tournament at the Paralympic Games. He hasn't had the best results you could possibly get by any stretch. But that's not because he didn't try. And I think it's really important to highlight that sport, there's a part of sport that's as big as winning, and that is the stuff that goes into it. So for 4 years, or 3.5, obviously, with Tokyo being in 2021, all these athletes do is train. They spend their whole life sacrificing everything. Like, people don't understand. And especially these Paralympians who are incredible, incredible humans beyond measure of how our minds could comprehend. And then you only get one chance when you get out there on event day. Jared was out there. He led the pack, as you can read here. I'll let you read that in the 1500 T13, and he had it pretty much all the way to the end. But that's what happens in sport. Sometimes you don't quite get there, but it wasn't because he didn't give. And I know you've probably read this and you're probably going, oh yeah, so he just gave in. What's so special about that? But it's this sort of effort. This is on the line. He lost by that 0.1 of a second, which you can't even blink that quickly. And this is in the rain in Paris, in your one chance. You've spent 3.5, 4 years preparing for this. And this is what it comes down to. And in the end, he didn't get a medal, but I think the effort that he gave should be celebrated as much, or maybe even more than if he had got a medal by Australians, because this is all we ask. And this is why we play, boys. This is why we celebrate people like this, because they're incredible. And sometimes it ends in this way. Sometimes it doesn't end with a medal around your neck and your arms outstretched and you're pumped up. But like I said, I want to celebrate this as much as if he had have won that. So congratulations to Jared. You made us all proud, and it's going to hurt, but we're happy for you either way. And the other one is a little bit more personal to me. It's Bo Vernon, who made his debut for the Australian Steelers in this Paralympic Games, our wheelchair rugby team, who have been very, very successful for the last 20 years. Unfortunately, didn't get the job done in terms of the gold medal, but as you can see here, they got bronze. And Bo was an outstanding footballer and an absolute star down in Gippsland playing for Leongatha. And then one of the other horrible parts about sport, got injured, lost his ability to walk, but didn't stop him. He's one of those people, and having spoken to him personally myself when he was coaching down at Phillip Island, he is one of the people that has changed my life, even though I've only spoken to him a handful of times. It's just remarkable the way he never gives into anything, and he just sets amazingly high goals for himself, and now he's achieved it. Sent the whole family over there with him. The boys got the bronze medal, and since his injury, he's a multi-winning premiership coach for two of the biggest clubs in Gippsland, where I come from. One of the most accomplished coaches I've been in contact with, and a remarkable human. So congratulations to Bo and the Steelers. Elsewhere, while we're on the topic of the Paralympic Games, we had some pretty cool results. This one overnight. James Turner. He was the reigning champion in the 400 T36. And he didn't only defend his crown, boys. He smashed the world record as well, if you don't mind. He is an absolute star in his event. One of the best I've seen. And everyone's going crazy over this. There's basically not much else to say, because the run, I watched the replay of it this morning, just tore them apart. And my favourite part about Jimmy Turner is this emotion. He grabbed the flag as quick as he could. He is so proud. It is so, so good to see Paralympians like this, gives this much emotion, because like we said, before with Jared Clifford. They just trained so, and they spent their whole life going towards this. So congratulations to Jimmy. This is the medal tally as it stands. We're going to do a full wrap when it's over. And all of our medalists, hopefully we give them a little bit of a wrap, bit of a bump up. But I was saying off air, a little bit of an interesting...
It's an insane list of nations.
Yeah, it's a bit odd, but I think...
Uzbekistan's done well to get themselves in the top 10.
I think from the Olympics, the only ones that were there in the top three were there in the top 5, and then like France and us were there. But the rest are newer or different. Brazil being 4th is insane.
Yeah, that is a great effort. And then China, just wiping the floor with everybody else at the moment. But yeah, they obviously have an amazing Paralympics program. As do those big nations, and they're huge. All of those countries at the top, especially China and America, are massive. France at home obviously get a bit of a boost, but Australia just continue to bat above average, and we love seeing that. So 9 gold so far, obviously 9 silver and 14 bronze is a pretty good effort. We'll see how that pans out over the last couple of days of the Paralympic Games. The other one I wanted to include was this, and I haven't cropped that very well, so my apologies. But if you can squint your eyes and read this, I'll just zoom it in for you. It's a pretty massive achievement as well. In the 4x100 medley, making up 6 seconds to secure gold is, I don't really have many words for that. Shout out to the Raw for posting this one up. You can go watch the replay. Wow.
Go watch the replay and go watch her interview, because her interview is probably some of the best content you'll see all week. It was great. Like, she was so excited to have won the medal, but to have been in the pool to bring it back, and it's just it's a great interview.
It's awesome, and I think the thing with us is we might not get as many gold medals as China and America, but the ones we do win are probably the most remarkable efforts out of the whole thing. Like Jimmy Turner just flogging the field for a world record, coming back from 6 seconds down to win this one.
And break the Paralympic record as well.
We just don't do things just to do things. We do things to smash records and do things properly. So congratulations to all of our medalists so far. Good luck to everybody else in the last couple of days of the Paralympic Games over in Paris. It's been massive month and a half over there in the City of Love, and hopefully we can bring back some more medals in the last few. And we'll, like I said, do a proper wrap on that when it's all over. But without further ado, it's Weekly Wonder time. And I had a few options here, but I had to go with my Pookie. It is Oscar Piastri, and I'm sounding very happy. He wasn't happy, though. You've got the McLaren jumper on. It's still a podium finish, still beat his teammate, but he could have won.
He could have. I think it's a weird one to... Like, obviously, as a McLaren fan and an Oscar fan, because he's Aussie, it's a weird one to go. He could have won, but it was so cool to see the way that it obviously transpired into the eventual winner. But like, Oscar's just putting the world on notice. Like, to be honest,
he sure is.
He's just,
and it's so much all we could both say about this, but we don't have heaps of time.
Yeah.
But for those that didn't watch the race or don't really follow it too much, he did everything he possibly could to win that race, and their strategy for the 18 drivers, including Oscar, that didn't win, was perfect to beat all of them.
Yeah.
He just got outdone by a shot in the dark chance, a bit of a gamble from Ferrari and Charles Leclerc. So basically, on a normal day, that was the right strategy. That was what all the data was telling them. He wins that race, but it was only because of some brilliance and some luck, a little bit of gamble, bit of, big, testicular fortitude from Ferrari that they got it done. But hats off to Oscar. Lando Norris, his teammate, and who everyone is saying is going to win this championship because he's the best driver and he's got the fastest car at the moment. All of that sort of garbage. He smoked him off the start.
Yeah.
Lando did well to cut across and get in front of him. And then going into one of the tightest chicanes, one of the most dangerous places on the calendar, really, at Monza, because you're going so fast into it. He goes around the outside where there's barely enough room for 2 cars and just overtakes Norris and does it in such a fashion that Lando poops his Dax and almost bins it in that corner. And everybody was shocked. And obviously all the media is, Oscar should never have done that. And he needs to back his teammate in. Papaya rules. It's all shit, mate. Yeah. Oscar's a better driver. We're seeing that. He carries himself better and he's more mature at the moment.
the overtake actually wins Leclerc the race.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Like, to be
because he
fair,
gets past
because he gets past
in the next
he
corner.
gets past Norris in the next corner. But that overtake is, we mentioned off air the Albon one in Canada, but that, like, the positioning of the track, where they are, like, I get it's turn one, lap one, but it's ballsy.
Yeah, and it's for the lead as well, which he did lead
And against your
quite a lot
teammate-
of the race.
Because against your teammate, it's so ballsy, because if he's half an inch off, both of them are out of the race, and it's, you know.
Yep. And all the media, like I said, is about, he shouldn't have done that. Like, he needs to back his teammate in, and he's, the younger driver. But like you're saying, the other part of this is what second-year drivers are doing that, or even going for that sort of thing. Like, you think about all the other ones, like all these young guys. Even like a Lance Stroll was never doing that sort of stuff, and he's been there for ages.
It wasn't necessarily in as good of a car, but the big thing is as well,
the stuff he goes for and the things he pulls off, and his maturity and the way he doesn't do things like I think about later in the race when he was behind Sainz, who was very, very slow. His tyres were gone. To try and get back into that second position and try and go for the race lead, he didn't try and dive in. Like he'd made that lap one overtake. He probably could have thought, and a lot of young guys probably thinking, I can get past everyone. Yeah. But he waited till the exact right time, and he made a great move and a safe one. And that's the thing where I think he's a lot further ahead than anyone we've seen maybe since Max Verstappen.
Yeah.
And
even then, like, Max early days had to work through some of the growing pains of kind of coming in, going in as he obviously came in the top, like a top car,
and he was a bit more aggressive, and he didn't have that level-headedness.
The whole media thing around, he should have trusted, like, given his teammate this and done this and this. His teammate should have started better.
His teammate should just be better.
Like, but that's the
I didn't get it. But that
Max,
the graphic, like, where every single time Lando started on pole this year, he has not led the first lap.
So the issue is,
I think it's 8 times now.
Yeah, Max starts on a race, and even if Checo's behind him and Checo is in great form, Max could still be a second ahead by the third corner because he starts so well in the race. Lando doesn't, and opens the door for this, and so that shouldn't have done that to his team. He was going to get past Lando at some point. Like, it was going to happen. If he wasn't, he wouldn't have been that close going into the third corner on the track. Like, give him the props from A, making the decision to do that against his teammate, B, pulling it off, and then, like, he effectively was the quickest driver who just didn't pull off the same strategy as Leclerc. But if he did, he would have finished so far ahead.
There's so many nerves and so much stress that goes into it, especially at the start when you have to hit it perfectly.
Yeah.
And some reason Norris just can't handle all of that, and Oscar can. And he's a guy that's been racing for like barely 18 months in Formula One, so he's special. We're not just saying that because we're biased Melburnians.
Making a big call, and we can clip it, and if it comes back, whatever. He's going to win in Melbourne next year.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you, mate.
He's winning the first round.
I was on my way to work yesterday, and I had some tunes pumping in my ears, and it's all I was thinking about.
He gets on the podium, he's going to win in Melbourne, and it's going to be...
And the city will go into lockdown.
Night to remember.
The city will go into lockdown. It's never happened before.
No.
As far as I've ever seen.
We've only been on the podium once, and then got disqualified.
Daniel Ricciardo's disqualification in 2014.
Valtteri Bottas did win, but he wasn't quite Australian.
He wasn't Australian yet.
We're talking about but the anthem's never been played.
No, the anthem has never been played. No, it's going to be massive, and I still think he's got a massive, massive role to play in this year's championship. They're going to run away with the constructors. Because, like I said, I'm not going to talk about Max today, which is rare, because I usually put a bit of Dutch flavour in. But
you're that unhappy.
Yeah, but I am going to pump my own tyres up and say I said months ago, not months ago, but a month ago, Red Bull is about to absolutely capitulate. Yeah. And that's happening already. Like, they should not be, Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez, as bad as he is, they should not be the slowest in the speed trap in qualifying. No, that is a Red Bull that was the greatest car ever in Formula One last year. Barely
12 months ago they were untouchable.
Yeah,
and now
it looked like it was going to be a more boring
just because Adrian Newey's
gone One than Lewis and Hamilton.
He's still there, but it's the restrictions on
Mercedes.
I've just seen it. It's been confirmed to Aston Martin next at the next race apparently. So hopefully Max can make the move over to Aston Martin. Would be nice, but that's enough on
Aston Martin.
That's enough on Max. Our Aussie boy was great. He started from second on the grid. He finished there because of Charles Leclerc, which we somehow haven't really mentioned yet. It's incredible. I've talked a lot on this podcast and our main one throughout the whole year about how sport can make dreams come true. And earlier in the year, his dream came true. He won his home Grand Prix for the first time in about 6 or 7 tries.
Rounding the grandstands he saw built as a kid, and he now wins it.
And now he wins, he wins the Italian Grand Prix in front
Monaco
of
home race,
Tifosi.
most iconic race, and Ferrari's home race
The
at
second
Monza.
time as well. So outside of Schumacher, he's now equal the most wins at Monza by a Ferrari driver.
And again, we could go on about this for hours, but basically for those that might not follow Formula One, the way that these Italians support Ferrari, it can only really be likened to Indians in their cricket.
Yeah.
Like it runs that deep. Like it is a religion to these guys. And I likened it, like this celebration, I likened to like the Carlton fans that haven't seen a premiership.
Yeah.
Because they saw so many back in the day, as did Ferrari. Ferrari were unstoppable back in the day.
That's actually good.
So these people, it's their religion, and they've been robbed year after year. Last year they were ripping into all Verstappen fans because he won by a minute or whatever it was, and now they finally get this, and I think it's the way it happened as well. So it was absolutely scorching hot, and teams thought, Red Bull started on the hard tyres, obviously thinking, we can one-stop this, we'll go pretty deep on the hard tyres. They were even ripped to shreds, and they're the hardest tyre you can get. Yeah. Everyone else started on the mediums. They got about 19 laps of a 50-lap race, which is not much, really. And because it's the quickest race on the calendar, they're flying around. There's not many slow parts of the track at all. They're ripping the tyres to shreds. I should have got the photo of Leclerc's tyres. McLaren pitted. I think they pitted both drivers.
Yeah, they pitted early.
At this point, Leclerc was right around them. And a lap later, they pitted Charles Leclerc, and he was really unhappy because after they pitted him, after the first McLaren driver, which I think was Lando,
he got undercut by both.
He ended up being undercut by both of them, and he's like, "What the hell is this strategy?" So in the end, he was like, "Screw it, let's just not stop again." And I think he went something crazy, like 30 laps on his hard tyres, when no one else apart from his teammate went more than probably 18. Yeah. They were absolutely smoked at the end, but he was still putting in 1 minute 22, 23 lap times, which was the fastest lap was a 1:20, I think. So the way he's done that, they've gambled. In the last 5 laps, the Tifosi stood up. They realised he's not going to stop again. He's in the lead. They're not going to chase him down. And Oscar did pretty well to chase him down, but
2 seconds behind him or something.
I think that's the last thing in his development is that he needs to, get a bit more, hunger about him, or whether he needs to push harder, because late in races, we saw it in Spa as well, when he has the better tyre, when he has the quicker car, he hasn't been able to find that late race pace, which I think if he gets that pace late in races, who's going to stop Oscar Piastri in that car? I don't think anybody is, because he's got this confidence against his teammate now. So he's not even scared of his teammate, which I think, and I was going to say before, credit to Mark Webber, he's raised an absolute beast. And I think Mark knows that, look, I just want this guy to be like me, but he's probably got a better chance to win the championship than I did.
He's also not up against. Everyone's going to say Norris looks like he's going to be a future world champion, but half of the young drivers.
Yeah, George you could say the same thing about this guy as well. Yeah,
Norris, Leclerc, Russell all look like they're going to be future world champions, but so does Oscar. Yeah. So where does that Oscar's not competing against Vettel, which Webber was, right? He's not. But Oscar's great. Second year, won a race, won a sprint last year, been on pole. Probably should have won at least one more race this year. Spa was one of the races Russell finished. It was only 20.
Ran into his Jackman as well, which cost him a few seconds.
So probably should have won a couple more.
Had a bad pit in this race as well, which probably cost him as well at the end.
Outside of Max, he's been one of the most consistent drivers of the year. I think there's some stat that he's either
every
finished
lap
on the podium. He's run every lap on the podium, 4th, 8th, or only out of the points once. Yeah, which is ridiculous.
Only Max has done that in the last couple of years.
Last 5 races, he's the equal top point scorer with Lando. Obviously, McLaren the top point scorer. But, Oscar, you can cop Oscar losing if this is the photo we're getting off the back of it.
And that's a great segue. Insane. I mentioned the religion and the connection. What else do you say?
That's photo.
Let the photo speak for itself.
That's F1 photo of the year. It has to be.
And
mental.
It is the best podium in the sport. It hangs over the track. The fans, like before the cars, Charlotte even got out of his car, there was like hundreds of people on the track already. The stands are full, like, and
It just goes so
rain,
far
hail, or
back.
shine. Like you can't even.
The first bridge,
Horizon.
the first footbridge, there's still people under it. It's
and
insane.
there's people all over the fences. There's mechanics all over the fences. There's security guards all over the fences. The McLaren team engineers were cheering for Charles at the end of the race.
Yeah.
It's just separate. Like, it's separate to everything else, and it's in its own special thing when a Ferrari driver stands on that step and wins. And I just wanted to say, I went through the whole of last year being a massive Max Verstappen supporter, and all I could hear for the whole year was everybody saying, this sport is awful, it's dying. Can Max please stop winning by this much? We just want someone else. We just want a bit of variety, please. And it's all they begged. What more could you want now?
Yep.
Seriously? Every single thing that those people asked for against Max has happened this year. This is the best season ever so far, I reckon. You've had, even in the last 3 races, or last 6 races, 3 different constructors. You've had 7 or 8 different winners. You've got a genuine battle for both championships. You've got Charles winning in Monaco. You've got Charles winning the Italian Grand Prix. And, you know, you've got McLaren at the front, so a different constructor at the front. And then you've got a genuine battle all the way down to 10th for all of them.
Yeah.
Maybe
Kick.
except for
probably
Kick, who are just dog water. But it's like, what more do you want out of this season? It just continues to produce. And as a Max fan, last year is the best season ever for a driver. So I'm taking that. That's fine. Yes, it's tough to see him, you know, in a car and a team that's imploding. But if this is a result, like you said, how can you complain about Formula One this year?
makes you so excited for next season. Like, because F1 has an issue. I was listening to a podcast and they mentioned this as well. F1 has an issue with changing regs when stuff starts to get good. 2021, Mercedes got caught up.
Yes.
Red Bull were there. It was a great title battle. Changed regs. It ruined it for 2 years, right? Like, not ruined it. If you're a Max fan, you loved it. But if you weren't a Max fan,
that's what I was going to say.
Boring.
For me, it was like, regs are changing. All right, we've got Adrian Newey, we're set. But for Mercedes fans and every other fan, they're like, can't we see 2021 Part 2?
Yeah.
That's all we want to see.
And so, but next year we're actually going to get 2024 Part 2.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we should.
For 1 year.
And there's a chance that Ferrari's going to be up there.
And you hope
Red
the fight's
Bull-
going to last the whole season rather
Well, that's the
than
thing that impressed me the most. They
sort of
had
the
upgrades
last
this weekend,
two-thirds.
and over the last couple of months, Ferrari's been going down, and
Yep.
everyone's sort of saying, Lewis made a bad decision because Mercedes were going pretty well. And so this is massive for them because, like you're saying, they're back next year as well. You know Mercedes are going to be there.
They're going to start next season with at least 5 constructors that you go, if everything goes right, they're going to win. This year you started the season going, well, Red Bull should win it, and they should win it in a cakewalk. And obviously it's looking likely that McLaren should run away with it, right? I think they're only 15 points behind or something now.
Yeah.
But next year, Red Bull have a track record of getting stuff right when they need to. Obviously, Newey leaving is a big out, but Mercedes are going to be there. Aston, who knows, because they've now got Newey.
Yeah.
Like that.
And a lot of Stroll money.
Car is terrible, but
And
could
they've got
become
Fernando
something.
Alonso. So
yep. McLaren's
be
going
there.
to be there. Like Ferrari with
and the
Lewis.
best thing for me is you've got, you know, a top 3 driver on the grid in Max Verstappen, but he's going to be driving for a team that might be awful. Like, it might be the 6th or 7th best team because I'm not sure how they're going to improve that car.
It could be Lewis from last year, right? Like, Lewis has been at the top for so long, and then he's in a terrible, terrible car. What can he get out of it? And Max, you know, I wasn't the biggest Max fan. It's probably still not. Like, you respect what he's done because it's incredible, but wasn't the biggest Max fan. I still think that at times he's a bit complaining, but if anyone's going to get the most out of that terrible Red Bull car, it's going to be him. Because it's just is. No, you can't put anyone else in that car. You probably put anyone else in the grid on that car, and they don't do what he can do in it.
And that's the conversation. And probably the last point on Formula One today is...
Just quickly, McLaren trail Red Bull and the constructors by 8 points.
Yeah,
so that's over.
Yeah.
The team is going to implode. Somebody has to leave by the end of the year. And all roads
Feels a bit
lead...
like Melbourne. You really need to shake
100%.
this organisation up
and
before you head into the new season, or else it's going to be
all roads lead to
a disaster.
Sergio
It may
Perez.
still be a disaster.
But I'm not sure they do.
I reckon
I'm
they
not
will.
sure if Liam Lawson would actually want to come into that. I know Daniel would, but is that even a good call? Like, Daniel was okay. He was racing all right outside of his incident.
Yeah, if he didn't run someone off the road, he would be okay.
But he ended up with about 15 seconds of penalties because, we can go into that, but we won't. Finished outside the points once again. So he's well up against it to stay in Formula 1, if you ask me, which is the same thing last year. Like, he got a little bit lucky last year.
F1 silly season's about to be back. There's going to be something that breaks 4 races before the end of the year, and it's going to cause utter chaos in the paddock, and it's going to be great to watch.
But I do think that chaos should start with someone high up at Red Bull leaving, whether that's Horner, whether that's Marco, which probably impossible.
Yeah.
Whether that's Max or himself or Max going to Yoss, you need to stop trying to take this team over, because it's not going well at all, and he's fed up, which is what this photo from last week still rings true. But yeah, that's enough F1 yet. We've pumped for Oscar. We're pumped for the rest of the season because no idea what it's going to produce. No race this weekend. We've got a break, which is probably due. Let Charles take that in and party on in Italy. And then Azerbaijan, Baku will be the next race, and Kevin Magnussen will not be there because he is suspended.
I literally just thought about this. I sort of somewhat follow Formula 1 because he's been on. He will get suspended for like years, it felt like.
It might be.
On a couple of times, it was like he really should have got penalty points for that one, which would have tipped him over, and the FIA didn't do it. Well, though, he's finally gone.
You know, should have got penalty points in the weekend. Hulkenberg for deciding to drive into the side of Tsunoda mid-corner.
And basically ruined his race. He was straight out in the next lap and didn't finish. But I think that possibly could be curtains for Magnussen. I'm not sure if
do we know who
can do that.
Driving the Haas?
Ollie Behrman.
I think Behrman will just take it, and if Behrman does well, I wouldn't be surprised if Haas just go, Kev, don't come back. And I think he's sort of half checking out anyway. But and I'm sure Bodie and I could talk for hours about Formula 1 and everything that is going on with it. So too could Lorenzo and I. But Lorenzo, Bodie's already nicked off. He has places to be. So he's stopped that chat, and for good reason. We can't be here all day. So we're going to move on from that, talking about aspiring careers in that of Oscar Piastri, and we're going to mention another one. This is incredible.
Yes,
Alexei Poprin. Let's just take in this first because what came after wasn't great. But this is, and obviously, like I said, it's not like he won the final or anything.
No.
But when you take down one of the greats in any sport, it needs to be celebrated on its own, just like Charles Leclerc in Monza. It's a win, but it's a more special win. It's a different win because
100%.
Novak Djokovic, just if he hadn't already, solidified himself as the greatest male tennis player ever with his achievement of a gold medal.
Yeah.
He has won this slam, but all the slams countless times.
Yeah.
He is incredibly hard to beat, and especially in the form he was in, especially in...
Yeah, it wasn't like this is a Djokovic that isn't... he hasn't won, and he won't win a slam in 2024, but he did win at the Olympics. So it's not like he's the number 2 seed, so it's not like this is necessarily a Djokovic, down at...
And he'd made the
completely
finals
going backwards.
In a couple of them as well. And he defeated Alcaraz in the gold medal match. And Alcaraz is easily the most informed player in the world, and he is basically the heir to the throne. And Alexei Poprin, the 28th seed, if you don't mind, just took him down, but didn't just take him down, just 6-4, 6-4, and then 6-4. He just gave up the one set and won it in 4. And just the look on his face, he was even thinking, oh my God, I've just taken down the GOAT. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah,
and
it is.
For a while, we've had sort of a holding period with, obviously, Kyrgios's career not dwindling, but being really taken over through injury. Kokkinakis the same. It's just been Alex de Minaur that we've been pushing on because everybody else has been a couple of tiers below, a couple of tiers behind. But now we've got someone else. This guy, Alexei Poprin, is there. Like, he's been up and coming the last few years. He's arrived now. Like, there's no... It's obvious to say because he's defeated the greatest of all time. But, like, after this, there's nothing to say. Like, in the Australian Open, he's arrived. Like, he's there. We're backing him in.
Yeah, this...
Go to all these games.
Really exciting for the Australian Open, which is obviously the next slam, not until the new year, obviously, but with de Minaur, who we'll speak about in the moment, and Poprin and other Australians to look out for. It's building now for Melbourne at the end of January.
And Poppy is a player. He's a great size. He serves incredibly hard and well. His court coverage is great as well, and he's classy. Like, I like watching him play. He's good to watch, and he's just defeated the GOAT. So he comes into the Australian Open with a lot of heat in his nose for sure. He'll be pumped for that. But something else that will give him a bit of motivation is this, and I said that we dwell on the win first because it doesn't always end well in sport, as we said earlier in the podcast. His next match after defeating the GOAT was against American and hometown hero Francis Tiafoe, who I have a soft spot for. I love Big Foe. He is one of my favourite tennis players to watch. He's entertaining. He's also a massive, hard server, great big body. And with his home crowd there in America, it was going to be very hard to beat, but beat him, Popperin was about to do. He was right there. He had the game on his hand, and as you can see here, he had 24 aces and 55 winners. And unfortunately, when the game was basically on his racket to win, 9 double faults and 8 unforced errors, and there went that win, and there went his tournament. So that's what can happen in sport. And it often actually does happen in tennis, which is why you've got to love it. It's different in that way. Yeah. You can beat the greatest, and then you've got to reach your go into your next match like you haven't played a match yet, and like none of that's even happened because they're so different. And just because you beat one person and they're really good doesn't mean you just walk in and beat the other. They're different challenges. And unfortunately, he couldn't get this one done as perfect as he was in the match before, and that was the end of his tournament. But still, like I said, a special win that should be celebrated on its
100%,
own against Djokovic. And a pretty good tournament and a breakout tournament for Alexei. As you said, we were going to mention the Demon. And again, for I think the second or third time this year, he gets on a graphic with one of our greatest ever in Leighton Hewitt. When a drought is ended in men's tennis, it's always Leighton Hewitt's was the last person to do it.
Yeah.
I don't think he gets enough credit for how great he was because of that drought we've potentially had with great consistent male tennis players. But de Minaur becomes the first person since Leighton, of course, to reach 3 quarterfinals in a season. Obviously, Leighton there doing a bit better with 2 quarters and 2 finals. But de Minaur, 3 finals for him this year, quarterfinals, and he will play probably the form man and the most favoured to win the whole thing from here on in. Yannick Sinner, if he gets through. But his next match will be Draper from Great Britain, who has massive momentum behind him. The whole country, the whole of Great Britain is behind him, which isn't as big of a place landmass-wise, but the support for a tennis player when they're up and about from that team is something. So that'll be a massive match. The good thing for the Demon is that he is 3-0 against Jack Draper all time. So it's going to be a huge match, and he is our best chance, clearly, remaining. And it's one of those slams, which we see quite a bit in tennis, where the top 2 and the most favoured and the most informed players are out. So you've just got to take it on. You've got to take that while it's there. It's like, you go into this with the 2 heavyweights, they're gone. There's your chance. This is not going to happen often because Djokovic and Alcaraz being eliminated in the same slam, probably never going to happen again. They're that consistent. It's probably, very, very unlikely. So for everybody left, including Alex, massive next couple of games coming up. I'd be real happy if he reaches that final. He deserves it. But obviously the thing with his game, it's still coming along. He is the 10th seed. And like I said, gets Draper next. So that's going to be massive. But I mentioned that Alcaraz is out. And I mentioned earlier that there was no Dutch flavour. So I thought I'd add some. With Botic van de Zandschulp, who no one's probably ever heard of.
Nope.
Very, very proud Dutchman, though, and I was up and about because right after the GOAT was defeated by our man, Alexei Popperin, Botic goes and does this against the baby GOAT, against the most informed player in the whole world, against someone who was pumped and fuming that he didn't get that gold medal in Paris, who'd won Wimbledon, won the French Open, looking to go 3 from 3 in the slams in the last couple. He's so powerful, and I remember he had an interview after one of his wins at the start of the tournament with Nick Kyrgios himself, and they were joking about the records he'll break when he wins this one. Win it, he is not going to. A 3-set, straight set defeat to my man Botic, the Dutchman. This is massive.
This is. And he's done it relatively, 6-1 first set, in straight sets as well. It wasn't one that Alcaraz took him right to the end. He's won it in straight sets against the 3 seed, and one of the biggest names in sport anywhere at the moment. It's a phenomenal effort.
And that's I said, sport. It's not always sunshine and rainbows, even for the best. And that's what I love about tennis. Just sometimes has you scratching your head going, what is happening? In the doubles draw, Thompson and Purcell took down the top seeds, Granollers and Zabalos from Argentina, and they are in to the doubles semi-finals, which is massive for them.
Yep.
We've obviously had some great doubles success lately with the boys, Piers and Ebden, winning that gold medal in Paris. So make sure you're watching the Demon. We haven't got too many or any left in the women's draw, unfortunately, but make sure you're watching the Demon over the next couple of nights and the doubles boys, because a lot of potential on that stage for the rest of the US Open. And it was, again, something to celebrate as well, because we had one of the largest Aussie fields ever. So from the start, so that's great as well. But that's enough tennis. Staying in America, this one, not an Australian, but has to be mentioned, gets a lot of love across the Extra Time team. And she should get love across the whole world, because she's changing the game of basketball. She is on track to be one of the greatest ever in her first season. Caitlin Clark, the graphic speaks for itself. Highest scoring games by a rookie. She's got the top 5 already. She's just, I think we posted on the Extra Time social media, so go and check that out. Her percentages from deep, which are up there and better than some of the NBA men's stars in Steph Curry and Dame and the likes. It's just a head scratcher, but just every time she steps out, it's like, wow, what?
Yeah.
Like, how is someone doing this in her first season? And it's just like, please go and watch at least one Caitlin Clark game, because you'll be amazed. And women's sport, but women's basketball is coming along leaps and bounds. Not solely because of her, but a lot of it is to do.
But she has a great
with CC.
opportunity, and the WNBA have a great opportunity. There aren't many people in sport history who have the opportunity to really build their particular sport. Do you think maybe there's not really that many? Conor McGregor maybe in mixed martial arts was someone who was sort of that sort of figure who sort of brought people along. Caitlin Clark, you could even say someone like darts was around for a lot longer, but even a Luke Littler type figure brought a whole new fan base to the sport, myself included. So she has that opportunity now, and she's churning out performances like that. And if the people at the WNBA are smart, which they're not always, this is their opportunity to finally prove what women's basketball is about.
Yep.
And the great players that they do have, and Caitlin Clark's at the forefront of it.
Yeah, 100%. It is must watch. I can't wait for what is in store for her this season and the awards she get. But I really think that she needs to be in the NBA three-point contest.
Yes.
With these guys, with Sabrina, who was in it last year. It's like, put her in everything. Give her shoes, plaster her everywhere. She's the face already. And the older players will hate that. And that is fair enough. If I was an older player and a rookie came in and she's already running the league, you'd hate that too. But they're just not as good as her. They're not doing this stuff. No one is. It's the same as Victor Wembanyama in the NBA, who is not changing the game the way as Caitlin is, because the NBA is already massive. Yeah. But they're putting him everywhere.
Yeah, but you go
she needs to be even more places than he is.
Yeah, but if you go for those older players, like, yes, it's probably going to be frustrating because you've been around for this long time, but there's going to be more eyeballs, not just on Kane Clark, but on your performances as well. So your fan base might also increase as well. And this is what's also happened in darts as well. Guys like, Michael Smith and Stephen Bunting, my man, Luke Humphreys, their profiles have gone bigger, in part
100%.
because of what Littler's done in bringing people into the sport. Because Kane Clark isn't the only one on the court.
Yeah.
Luke Littler has to play someone else on when he fronts up on televised darts. So there's going to be a trickle down. Yes, Caitlin Clark's going to be the face of it, and that's going to be annoying. But you might get a few more eyeballs on your products.
And if it annoys
increase
you,
of your social media followers as well.
If it annoys you, lock her up. Take her down 1-on-1. Like, go and beat her, like, mano a mano. Like, go and go, all right, if you're this rookie and you're taking over the league, I'm going to beat you. And do that, because then everybody will be watching that. And then you get, like you're saying, that attention. But yeah, it is something to watch, something to see. And staying in America, because why not? It's time to go through this. We're finally back. We are finally back, baby.
It's been too long.
It has been way too long since we've seen this cheesy grin winning another title, which annoyed a lot of people, but she's simply the best in it right now, and worthy to be the face of the league, and someone else who is changing his competition as well, Pat Mahomes. So, officially back. And I'll leave this up here so everybody can get their right times and when to wake up and everything to watch these matches. But Ravens and Chiefs to kick off.
It's a great way to start, isn't it? Yeah.
It's
So
going to be
AFC Championship
huge.
title game rematch as well. And that one was in Baltimore on that particular occasion. And the Ravens, well, they went miles out of that game from memory, but they were under pressure very early.
They had
and
the
they
game.
never really responded.
Jackson probably didn't have his best game, but that Chiefs defense won them that game for sure. Like, Pat was great, but the Chiefs defense, led by Chris Jones, was phenomenal in that game. But in saying that, it's obviously going to be different. Like you said, this game, new season, Ravens wanting revenge, but they're replenished. And I say replenished because they have brought in possibly the best running back over the last era in Derrick Henry. Yes, he might be a little bit old, but I'm telling you, Lamar Jackson slimmed down. He's the best running quarterback in the comp.
So they have the two best running backs, in fact.
Now they have the two most imposing runners in the comp, and they drafted some great young wide receivers. They've got Zay Flowers in his second season. Mark Andrews coming back. That offense is so much better than it was last year. They've got more options. So that Chiefs defense as well on the other side, losing a couple of key players. Snead going to, I think you went to the Titans.
Yeah,
I'll
double check that.
He was their main, guy in that secondary. So obviously,
Titans. Yeah,
a lot of guys are coming back, but they lost a few. And again, the question is always going to be on that Chiefs offense, who brought in Hollywood Brown. He's out for week 1. Who's Pat really throwing to outside of Trav Kelce? Because Brown's, who they brought in, is injured. Rashee Rice, obviously, potentially going to prison. You never know. And Kadarius Toney's been let go. They've brought Juju Smith-Schuster back, but he's not really been on the roster yet. So if these guys continue to win without a genuine star, decent wide receiver one, it's going to be because of Pat.
Yeah.
And he's the best in the game right now. But I think the game is going to be won and lost, as it was in the championship game, on the side of the ball of Baltimore's offense. I think if that Chiefs defense can stand up, again, it'll go a long way to them winning, because the Ravens defense lost a couple as well. I think Patrick Queen went to Pittsburgh, which was interesting, but obviously wanted a bit more coin. He's massive for them, as he has been for the last few years. And so it's going to be a little bit of a hole there. There's holes in both defenses with them losing superstars, but I think I'm not worried at all. As crazy as it sounds, without a genuine wide receiver one, I'm not worried at all about Pat Mahomes getting that offense going, because it's Pat Mahomes.
Yeah.
So I think that game on Friday morning will be won, like I said, on Lamar Jackson's side of the ball. But it'd be interesting. Before I go through them all, I thought I'd just give, like I did last season, and we might end up going with a graphic as we move on through the season, but I thought I would give my ranks before we go into the games and read through the Aussies as well. So in no particular order, my top 10 will be San Francisco. I think they're the most well-built team, not just on paper, but the players they've got. It's phenomenal. And Brock Purdy comes in probably fully healthy to this season. Yeah. Christian McCaffrey is the best player in the competition. It's going to be huge for them. And again, losing in a Super Bowl by a touchdown, give it that even. Going in, they're a top 2 with Kansas City, who, despite all their problems, they've got Pat Mahomes. And they have probably the easiest schedule, because their division is quite weak this season, with the Chargers having even less receivers than the Chiefs do. A new coach straight out of college in Harbaugh, who's great, but going to be a bit touchy there. The Raiders are just awful, and the Chiefs have their number. And then Denver, who knows what's happening? Who knows what's happening with Woodsy's boys and who's going to be the quarterback? Sean Payton's great coach, but you don't really back them in. The Chiefs will wipe the floor with all of those guys, and that's 6 wins on the board, basically guaranteed. So they're my top 2. Philadelphia bring in Saquon Barkley. They've got to be up there as well. Miami, I think the best offense in the competition last year. So dangerous. And I think the defensive side of the ball is going to improve as well, with players playing full seasons instead of injury-interrupted ones. Baltimore has to be there as well, with them bringing in Derrick Henry. It's going to be massive. A bit of change in coaching with their defensive coordinator moving over to my boys and taking on that head coaching job. But I think they're just going to be, the reigning MVP. They can't not be in the top 5. And then the second half of my top 10 is Detroit. I think they'll improve once again. Houston, I mean, their off-season was phenomenal. Yeah. Bringing in Stephon Diggs and Jermaine Mixon and CJ Stroud in his second season. In his first season, he's made playoffs week
Yeah.
2. So in second season, who knows what he can do with
those
that.
two teams you mentioned, Detroit and Houston, they're fun to watch. They're going to be ones, and if they can continue on from what they built on last season, they're just they're going to be must-watch television no matter who they're playing, no matter what the situation.
And they've got that thing that those other teams I mentioned don't have, that they haven't achieved anything in ages, and their fans are hungry for it. So the support that they get is huge at Ford Field and in Houston as well. Dallas have to be there. I'm not really confident at all because they don't have much other than their superstars. Yeah. But that defense is phenomenal. So I think they'll still be there. And the team that tore them apart in the playoffs, Green Bay, will be there. They are up and coming. Jordan Love, I don't know how they do it, mate, but they just continue to produce these quarterbacks, which you think, he'll be okay, and end up being superstars. And they brought in Josh Jacobs. The defense, a little bit of movement there. But I think, Alexander and the boys up front will get it done on that side of the ball. And those young receivers in Dobbs and Watson are going to be something, I think, and Reed as well. So I think, don't count them out. I'm not going to put them in my top 5, but I think, back half of the top 10 in my rankings for sure. And then I had to be a little bit biased and put my Seahawks in there to round out the 10, but it's very, very close. I think it's good that Geno Smith's going to have a bit of pressure on his job because that will hopefully make him play a bit better. Jackson Smith and Jigba, I think, is going to get a bit more opportunity and finally pop off because it's really rare that an Ohio State receiver is no good. So I've got faith in him. DK will run it very well. He's always going to be a threat. But I think with the new coaching panel in, I think the defense is going to be a lot better. We've got some really good young players on that side of the ball in Tariq Woolen and Devon Witherspoon. And I think Kenneth Walker, if he can stay healthy, a lot of it's going to revolve around him, and he's going to be a star. But that's my top 10 for now. The other teams I had just outside could easily be in there. Cincinnati, I'm just not backing them in because of Burrow's injury history. And losing Mixon, not sure that they're as strong on offense. The defense is going to be great. And also with Jamar Chase's, contract situation and T. Higgins as well, sort of not really wanting to be there. A little bit up in the air. The Rams, I think I just backed Matt Stafford and Sean McVay in, who wasn't really keen on coaching anymore as young as he is. But Puka Nacua and a healthy Cooper Kupp, always dangerous. You've got to keep them in there. Tampa Bay, the same thing really. I think Baker Mayfield finally finding that football that he's been wanting to play for recent years. Their offense is great. Rashad White's becoming a really solid young running back. And you can't discredit Mike Evans. He continues to produce. The defense is great as well. And then Cleveland, massive, massive question mark. But Joe Flacco took them to the playoffs last year. They're well built on defense with, obviously, Myles Garrett, who was Defensive Player of the Year last year. I think very, very dangerous there. Huge question mark is Deshaun Watson and whether he's going to ever recreate that form he had in Houston. But I've still got them there. And then the 3 that I would not be surprised if they win a lot more games than people think is Chicago, Atlanta, and New York. Jets, obviously with Aaron Rodgers. Just a question mark there, but their defense is absolutely outstanding.
It's hard to know with those 3, but Chicago's interesting. Obviously, they had the number 1 pick, and they're playing Tennessee this first week, so that's going to be... So for a change, there's going to be a bit more attention on Tennessee in our week 1 game. I think you had to go back a few years when we played the Browns in one particular week 1, and there was big hype for the Browns that particular year, and we thrashed them, and they finished 7-9. I think Cleveland that particular season. Mayfield was the quarterback at that time, so that's one I'm very curious to see how it plays out. And Chicago and Atlanta even, and New York Jets. We'll see how they go. I agree with pretty much everything you said there. Wouldn't be surprised if some of those teams just outside the 10 do pop in at various points this season.
For sure. And that's actually a good segue you make with the Bears, because going through the Aussies, well, there's still a decent list this season to watch out for. One of them, and he was the highest punter picked in this draft, was Torrey Taylor, our boy. He will be playing for the Chicago Bears, and you as a Titans fan will be hoping he's out there quite a lot.
Yes,
but the Bears fans will be hoping he doesn't see the field. But if he does, he will do an amazing job. He was outstanding for Iowa in college. He has a massive leg. He's a big guy. I'm keen to watch him.
Tennessee would like to see him out there a bit more. If he's punting brilliantly and forcing us to start every drive inside our own 20.
Yeah, true.
Maybe we'd rather an interception or a turnover.
That is very true. Elsewhere, Cam Johnston, another big fan who I'm a big fan of. He's in Pittsburgh now, moved from Houston, so he'll be punting for the Steelers. Obviously, the main man, Jordan Mailata, is still with the Eagles, the big fella. Great to see him still getting it done there. And he'll have a massive role this year on the offensive line,
100%.
trying to free up space for, obviously, Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. My boy, Dicko, Michael Dixon, going around again for the Seahawks. Does it beautifully. Has been doing it beautifully since 2018. As has his division buddy, Mitch Wishnowsky, for the Niners, who's been injured, didn't play, I don't think, any of the preseason. And they have brought in coverage behind him, but he's a star. He will stick with that starting job. Daniel Falale is with the Baltimore Ravens on that offensive line. And Matt Habel is the new boy. And he has actually taken show favourite Lou Hedley's spot on the Saints. So it was an all-Aussie battle there for that punting gig. And the rookie has earned the spot on the roster. So Lou Hedley is a free agent. We'll be seeing if he can go anywhere, get a job on any teams. And as we've been talking about before with Sipos, Woodsy's boy, it isn't the worst thing in the world if you don't have a spot, because punters and kickers in the NFL, they just get flicked if you have a bad game like nothing.
Yeah.
Like you aren't even there. So, Lou didn't have a horrible season last year, so I think he's still a chance, but a great story for the 27-year-old Matt Habel, who is now going to be the starting punter for the New Orleans Saints. He played a bit of college ball for Vanderbilt. He was first team All-SEC in 2023, so he's in a bit of form. He actually played for the Geelong Cats in the VFL, I think, back in the day. Lorenzo, there you go. And he went to Pro Kick Australia, obviously, and was picked in the draft by the Saints. Other notable free agents who aren't on lists at the moment, but are Aussies, are Laken Vakalahi, Adam Gotsis, who is our longest-serving Australian. He's actually a free agent at the moment at 31 years old. Lou Hedley, like I mentioned as well. Pat Murder is a really sad story. He has been a weekly wonder multiple times on the show. He finally got properly signed to the Jacksonville Jaguars after going through a hip injury last year. He went into camp, he was training, and he has actually broken his ankle. So that is as sad as you get for Pat. But knowing him, following his story, he'll be back.
Yeah.
And I think I included a couple of weeks ago. If I didn't, that was a mistake. But the starting tight end for the Jags, Evan Ingram, who is one of the best in the game at the moment, was full of praise for Pat, his work ethic, the way he's still sticking around and rehabbing very well. But what he did show when he was healthy, Evan said he is going to fit into this game beautifully and he will play when he comes back. So that's very positive. And obviously rookie tight end Thomas Yasmin was picked up by the Broncos through preseason, but after going undrafted, didn't earn that roster spot, so we'll be seeing if he gets a spot as well. And then punter Aaron Sipos, I don't think is really too interested anymore, but he was an Aussie who was playing. I think he went back and played a bit of Australian rules back on home soil. But they're your Aussies to watch this weekend. That's your schedule. Make sure you get into it. Make sure you get into me if you don't like my rankings. I'm pretty happy with them. But starts on Friday, goes through the weekend. There's a game in Brazil.
Yes, this
in
is
the
marvelous.
middle of it all, which is going to be interesting between the Eagles and the Packers on Saturday. And then obviously I'll be up at 3 a.m. on Monday and finishes with the Jets and the Niners, which is going to be a ripper as well. So make sure you take all that in. NFL's back. I'm out of breath.
Brilliant.
You can take over with a bit of cycling.
Thank you very much, Boxy. I did want to bring up these couple of things very quickly. I won't be too long. We've run a bit over time, preferably. But I did want to bring this up, and I must admit I didn't find this on my own necessarily. It was brought to my attention listening to Judd Waitley's program a couple of days ago. He asked for the viewers' snap judgments from the weekend sport, and with no AFL, there was a bit more variety, and someone did text in, and even another one called in about this West Aussie over here. His name's Ben O'Connor, and he currently leads the Volta a España, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, the Tour of Spain, which is one of the 3 Grand Tours, the Giro d'Italia and the Tour de France being the other 2, of course. No Australians ever won this particular race, and he has led it since stage 6, which he won stage 6, and it's stage 16 was overnight. He's 5 seconds in front, which on a Grand Tour stage is basically nothing. It would be like the closest finish if it stays that long. It's interesting just sort of reading the cycling publications sort of thing as I wanted to bring this up. There's been a lot of thought, basically, that he would lose this red jersey at some point, that there was a great... He isn't really expected to be at this particular stage, and a lot of people were saying, he's going to lose it at some point, but he's held it on He's just held it on overnight. It looked like he was going to be overtaken, but he's still 5 seconds in front. There's 5 stages left. The time trial is the very last stage of this entire event. So he's got, where are we? Let me just try and bring this up. We've got a medium mountain stage, 141.5 kilometers tonight. It's been on SBS Viceland, I think, or whatever it's called, throughout the week. So if you want to check that out. By the time you're watching this, he may not be in the red jersey anymore, but I just did want to bring this up as an Australian who's doing really well overseas, who has the potential, if he can hold on, which would be a bit of an upset from the things I've read, but he'd also be the first Australian to actually win this particular event, one of the biggest events in this particular sport. So my cycling knowledge isn't great, but I thought I would just bring it up. I thought it would be poor of us not to mention an Australian who, at the moment, is doing really well. And I think we also have, Caden Groves, I think his name is another Australian who actually leads the points classification, and Jay Vine leads the mountains classification. So we've got 3 Australians in leading various classifications in the Tour of Spain, basically it is. So, but best of luck to all the Aussies and Ben O'Connor in particular. He's 5 seconds in front of the second-placed rider, and hopefully he can at least, if he finishes, top 3, top 5, that would be a great achievement. And if he can go on to win the whole thing, as I said, he'd be just the 3rd Australian to win a Grand Tour and the first to win this particular event. So we wish best of luck to him. Again, by the time you're watching this, he may no longer be in front, but he's held this for the last basically 11 weeks. 11 stages, I should say. So we wish him best of luck, and we congratulate him on what he's already done, which is already a great achievement to be leading a Grand Tour this late into, and to hold it basically for nearly 2 weeks at this point. So, and I do thank whoever was messaging this in too lately, or else I would have completely missed it. But I thought I would bring that up. And I won't go too big on darts because Josh isn't here. He's basically here every second week at the moment. So we will we will have a big discussion really next week, because we've got a big major coming up. Simone did make sure to print this 190. That's not brilliant, but I'll just be very quick on this. We had the German Darts Championship over the weekend. Our Aussie Damon Heta got to a quarter-final, lost in the last leg to Luke Littler. Should also mention Simon Whitlock, who me and Josh were basically saying he needs to get a win. He needs to get a win. Well, he did. It was his first win on the Euro Tour in about 16 months or something ridiculous. It's good to see him in form on a big stage. He won on the same night as Menta Sulovic and Max Hopp, which if you're a darts fan of a particular generation, like going back sort of 5-10 years now, would have been very standard to see those sort of guys winning an event, but they haven't been in the greatest of forms, so it was good to see them get wins as well, so well done to Simon. But it should be mentioned, actually Simone actually brought this up, which I'm a bit surprised to see, that not too me to Peter, but the Scottish 2-time world champion Peter Snakebite Wright, who's been absolutely awful for like the last 10 months, was terrible in the Premier League. He won that particular tournament. He was up against a Luke Littler, who was just marvellous. He was throwing in 11, 12, 13 darters left, right and centre. But somehow he won 6 legs on the trot, coming from 5-2 down to win 8-5. It was an emotional time. Peter Wright has been working really hard. He always tinkers with the particular darts he throws in his setup, which has always been a bit of a meme in the darts community for like the last 2 years, because he's always constantly changing various things. So he was very emotional, particularly after beating MVG, Michael Van Gerwen, in the quarterfinal. He was quite emotional on stage after that, as was Luke Littler, because one of his friends' fathers had actually passed away during the week as well. So it was an emotional scene in Hildesheim.
Great effort to do so well after that, yeah.
So both of these guys are great stories. Heta now still 7th in the World Grand Prix race, so top 8 are seeded for that, so he'd be a seed for that, which is a net benefit, and he's currently projected to be 7th by the time we get to the World Championship, so 7th seed for that event. Gets him away from playing the number 1 seed in a quarterfinal as well, Luke Humphreys, which would be ideal. Not that someone like a Michael Smith or Michael Van Gerwen is that much of a peg down, but that would be great. So good to see Heta getting wins there. We've got an event in Antwerp, Belgium this week, the Flanders Dance Trophy. Heta will be there as the 5th seed as well, so we wish him best of luck there, and I might go through more of that with Josh if he is here next week, because we've got those 2 events. We've got the World Series of Darts Finals, which Whitlock and Heta will both be in. That's next week, 13th to the 15th of September in Amsterdam, and maybe with Josh next week we'll dissect some of the PDC calendar. I literally mentioned on the last program how they usually release it around this time of year, and they did release most of what their calendar is for 2025. And it's got a few interesting elements that I might bring up with Josh, either off or on air. We'll see how we go with that. So well done again. Whitlock got a win. Well done to Wright and Littler for making it to the final, and Wright getting a much-needed win, and Heta continuing to do marvellous things. He did a little interview, basically throw and chat on the Modus Super Series YouTube channel, so I'd recommend checking that out. He's been a great story, making his way across to the other side of the world, and now very much putting himself in the top 10, top 8 in the world. So that's the conclusion of the darts update, and hopefully we'll have more good news from Heta and other Aussies around the grounds in the weeks to come. Foxy?
100%. And just before we finish, it would be amiss of me to not mention what happened in Peru. Weird place to have something, but it was the World Juniors, which moved nicely, beautifully onto the back of the Olympic Games. And you see a couple of our Olympians there in Tori Lewis and Claudia Hollingsworth both got silver medals, and it was our most successful Australian under-20 medal haul ever. So I'm not going to talk too much about this because there was that many medals and that much success, it would extend the show by about an hour. But I do want you to keep a couple of names in mind, and they're the two I mentioned already. So Claudia Hollingsworth, one of the best distance runners we have at the moment, obviously still not even 20 years of age. And Tori Lewis on the left, the quickest Australian woman ever, and the quickest Australian woman at the moment. Second at the World Juniors. And there's one that's not on this screen, but everybody should know him by now, and you've got to remember him. His name is Gout. So good you say it twice. This kid is 16 years old, Lorenzo, and he came second in the 200.
I did see this. Yeah.
He didn't do the 100 to focus on the 200. He's broken all sorts of records. He's in the sub-11 already in the 100 metres for a 16-year-old, and he's, I think, run a PB at the World Juniors inside the sort of 21-second mark in the 200. He is something. I saw him race live last year in Perth. It is he is something else. He was winning races at the Australian junior titles by, I'm not kidding, he was winning the 200 by 50 metres. He is something to watch. He's already got a massive cult following. Remember his name. He's going to win medals for Australia. He already has, but he's going to win medals Australia in senior competitions down the track. He's only 16. He is something to watch. So make sure you remember the name Gout. I'm pumped for what he does next, but all-time tally for our juniors and in Peru. So massive for them. Congratulations. Congratulations to all the Aussies we've mentioned, all the Dutchmen we've mentioned, everybody else that we've mentioned. We've had a heaps of fun. Make sure you take in all the sport this weekend. The NFL's back. It's going to be huge.
Yep.
Like and comment as well, and keep us going. Keep yourselves going. Give us your opinions. We'd love to hear them. Follow us on Instagram as well, and we'll be back next week. So we'll see you then.